Today, we're going to talk about advertising mascots, one of the most tried and true staples of product and brand marketing, and yet one that's really fallen out of favor in the last 20 to 30 years. So, pop quiz time. Let me name 5 mascots, and let's see if you can remember which brand they go to. Number 1 is Tony the Tiger. Number 2 is Flo. Number 3 is the most interesting man in the world. Number 4 is the counting sheep. And our last one is the cows who encourage people to eat more chicken. So I intentionally picked 5 mascots from 5 different types of brands, and those 5 are Frosted Flakes, Progressive Insurance, Dos Equis Beer, Serta Mattresses, and Chick-fil-A. Now, a couple of things I want you to notice. The first is that none of these mascots are directly connected to their brand name the way that, say, Little Caesar or Snuggle Bear or Count Chocula are. The second is that all of these mascots represent brands that compete in some very competitive spaces: the cereal aisle, insurance, alcohol, mattresses, and fast food. As silly as these characters can be, they are all absolutely vital to the success of these brands, cementing them in the hearts and minds of people who might not even use the brands that they're associated with. For example, I've never once used Progressive Insurance, but I definitely know who Flo is and what she's selling. I've never had a Dos Equis beer in my life, but I'd love to hear more from the most interesting man in the world. I don't eat at Chick-fil-A. I'm a vegetarian, but I do love those cows and that innocent look in their eyes as they try to redirect fast food fans to eat more chicken. So let's talk about why mascots are such a great tool for marketing and why they ought to be used more often. I'm Sean in St. Louis, and this is the Marketing Gateway. So before we delve into mascots, let's take a moment to understand their use in product marketing, because mascots have been around since the late 1800s as part of entertaining crowds at sporting events. Who the first mascot is remains a topic of debate. There's evidence that they go back way further in history than anyone realizes, but the word itself was popularized by the 1880 French opera La Mascotte, which is about a farmer who finds a good luck charm in a mysterious girl named Bettina, who helps turn around his unlucky fortunes. Because good luck charm is what the word actually means. Having a mascot on your side meant having an animal or an eccentric fan or even a lucky object that helped you to achieve success. One great example is Yale's Handsome Dan, a bulldog that was said to hate the color crimson and also tigers, there are 2 rival teams, but was willing to tolerate loud noises and marching bands, which is great for sporting events. During the late 19th century and early 20th century, mascots were rarely used in marketing or advertising, but it wasn't uncommon for illustrations from advertising campaigns to be utilized again and again. Quaker Oats has ads dating back to the late 1870s depicting their mascot, a Quaker man who was chosen because one of the co-founders of the company read about the Quakers and thought they sounded like a good fit for oats that were supposed to be consistent, healthy, and pure. Michelin Tire's Bibendum, also known as the Michelin Tire Man, was featured in advertisements as early as 1898 and appeared in them for decades before becoming the mascot character he is today. One of the first 20th century advertising mascots anyone might recognize today is the Gorton's Fisherman, originally just a silhouette of a man in a raincoat at the helm of the schooner when he appeared in 1905, but later on his raincoat turned yellow and he was given gray hair and a beard as he appears today. Another of the earliest examples is the Morton Salt Girl, a young girl who was depicted in ads as early as 1914, holding an umbrella in a downpour while also pouring salt out of the canister to suit the slogan, "When it rains, it pours." She's still on the package today. Another early advertising character who began showing up on packaging appeared in 1916. His full name is Bartholomew Richard Fitzgerald Smythe, but you probably know him by the name on his top hat, Mr. Peanut. Created by a schoolboy named Antonio Gentile for a design contest, Mr. Peanut soon became the figure you'd see in every Planters Peanut Company product and advertisement. He's so synonymous with Planters Peanuts today that he is often more recognizable than the brand itself. Perhaps the first example of a true brand mascot who's an actual character and not just an illustration. Other brand mascots from the early 20th century include the Jolly Green Giant, who got his current look in 1935 from Leo Burnett, Betty Crocker, a fictional character introduced in 1921 to share recipes and answer food-related questions, and Chef Boyardee, a somewhat fictional version of the actual chef Ettore Boiardi, who launched his ready-to-eat spaghetti kit in 1928 and served as his brand spokesperson for over 50 years. Now, Coca-Cola has never had an outright mascot for their brand, but they might as well have adopted Santa Claus, since many people associate him with the brand due to the similarity of his red coat and white trim to the Coca-Cola Company's own trademark logo. But even before Santa, Coca-Cola was including polar bears in its advertising in France. Today, the Coca-Cola polar bears are strongly associated with the brand thanks to a campaign that brought them into global popularity in the mid-1990s. Breakfast cereal mascots have been a way to help product companies stand out from competition offering similar products, and Kellogg's was one of the first to adopt the practice with the creation of the elves Snap, Crackle, and Pop in 1933. And throughout the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, many mascot characters began to appear as part of product brand advertising. Some of the most famous include Tony the Tiger, who was created in 1952, the Kool-Aid Pitcher Man, who first appeared in 1954 before being retooled into the Kool-Aid Man in 1974, Mr. Clean, who first debuted in 1958 as a product personified as a Navy sailor with a dislike for dirt, Ronald McDonald, who first showed up promoting a Washington, D.C. McDonald's franchise in 1963 before he got retooled into a national mascot, Poppin' Fresh, the Pillsbury Doughboy, who was created in 1965, and Count Chocula and Frankenberry, who first appeared in 1971. There are also actual people who were turned into mascots, like the Sun-Maid Girl, Lorraine Collett, Little Debbie's Debbie McKee Fowler, and Wendy's Melinda Lou Wendy Thomas. And of course, there's Harlan Sanders, the owner and spokesperson for his restaurant chain, Kentucky Fried Chicken, who later became better known as Colonel Sanders thanks to his Kentucky Colonel honorific that he received in 1935. That's a civilian designation, by the way. He never actually served in the military, and that's probably a good thing because the real Harlan Sanders had a reputation for being insubordinate and foul-tempered. For example, he had to stop practicing law when he got into a courtroom brawl with his own client. He also later got caught in a shootout with his biggest chicken rival once he got into the restaurant business. And after he sold KFC, he accused the new company of making slop and then refused to eat there. Fascinating guy, that Colonel Sanders. He was many things, but you know what? He wasn't chicken. We can keep going and talk about more modern mascots like the Geico Gecko, the Energizer Bunny, the Old Spice Man you could smell like, the Budweiser Frogs, the Dude You Got a Dell guy, the Verizon Can You Hear Me Now guy, or Flo, the Progressive Insurance Lady. But I want to talk about one more brand, and that's American Family Life Assurance Company. You've heard of them, right? American Family Life Assurance Company. They've been around since 1955, and they're the largest provider of supplemental insurance in the United States. They're a Fortune 500 company. They trade on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker name AFL. Oh, and did I mention that when you turn American Family Life Assurance Company into an acronym, you get the word Aflac? I'll bet that rings a bell, or maybe a bill. And you might not have even realized what that word stands for, but it sure does sound like something a duck might quack, doesn't it? And that idea came from an art director named Eric David from Kaplan Thaler Group, who was walking around during his lunch break trying to figure out how to promote this account for his company. He started saying the name over and over, Aflac, Aflac, and realized that it kind of sounded like a duck. The agency pitched the idea, and then they brought in comedian Gilbert Gottfried to provide the voice of an angry and insistent duck trying to get people to learn the brand name of this insurance company. The campaign was a huge success, taking Aflac from 11% brand awareness in 1999 to 94% in 2014, and turning them from a $4 billion company into one worth at least 4 times that. And that change is something they entirely attribute to their advertising, because before that duck mascot became part of their brand, Aflac was spending $40 to $50 million a year doing very conventional advertising, and yet they were barely known. The character is now part of the brand logo. He's even been made into plushies, limited edition collectible plushies. And as I've been talking about all these advertising mascots, I'm sure many of these characters are familiar to you, even if you're not especially familiar with the brands they represent. And so my question is, why are there so few of them? After all, there are a lot of reasons organizations to have a mascot. They're memorable, they're interesting, they're distinctive and able to communicate aspects of a brand. They're intellectual property that can be owned and trademarked and even licensed. And they're also great at generating earned media if they get up to antics that are social media friendly. And yet, very few companies beyond product companies actually utilize them. In recent years, we've seen some incredible uses of mascot characters. McDonald's decided to celebrate their purple mascot Grimace's birthday last summer and introduced a purple concoction called the Grimace Shake. This not only helped celebrate the heritage of the brand, but really took off with Gen Z and social media influencers who wanted to try the Grimace Shake and make skits about how it affected them. McDonald's had a huge hit on their hands because of it. Duolingo's nagging green owl, Duo Keishana Renee Lingo, started acting strangely earlier this year and apparently died in February. Both traditional media and social media went wild speculating about why and how and who was even responsible. Even though it was ultimately revealed that Duo had faked his death, this whole stunt allowed the brand to powerfully communicate its message about the importance of completing your language lessons every day to make Duo happy. And then there's Glazy the Peach, a creation from the skincare brand Ole Henriksen that had her own Instagram account. Her plump, juicy skin started to get gray, and she claimed to have found the juicy secret to skincare. It was, of course, a new line of peach-themed plumping products. And let's not forget the skincare brand CeraVe's announcement earlier this year that it was letting people know that it was the GOAT, the greatest of all time, by introducing a blue and white goat named CeraVe. And it was also pretty brilliant, especially as the mascot has taken on a life of her own. That whole idea, which came from the Ogilvy PR New York agency, attracted plenty of attention over the summer. But there are reasons that we don't see a lot of mascots also. For one, they're incredibly hard to create, especially with many levels of approvals and consumer testing needed to get them going. They have an even harder time being accepted by the public once they've launched. They run the risk of becoming outdated or even parodied if people don't like them, and, of course, they require a long-term strategy that doesn't really suit the lower horizon strategic decision-making many organizations utilize today. But the benefits of having a successful product mascot are huge. They add memorability and personality and fun to brands that often struggle to offer any of those things on their own. They also allow brands to make stronger connections with the public, since those mascots can make public appearances or have social media profiles or appear in advertising or on products or even on service literature. Which just makes me wonder, why aren't more people taking the time to create them? Because if something as abstract as Aflac can reap a windfall from having a duck quack its name, I have to believe there's a lot of untapped potential out there for other brands. I'm Sean in St. Louis, and this has been the Marketing Gateway. See you next time. Today's plug is for taking a walk. As we heard in this episode, it was a lunch break walk that led Eric David to come up with the Aflac Duck, and I suspect that was probably the most rewarding walk of his life. But walking is really good for you as a daily habit anyway. It's good for your joints, it's good for your legs, it's good for your heart, and it's great for your head. Getting up and getting out of your normal surroundings for even just a few minutes can help to clear up brain fog, put an end to procrastination, and focus your attention in a way that just sitting at your desk will never accomplish. I've known several people who have made it to their 90s in great health, and you know what they almost always attribute to their longevity? Daily walks. And I've also found on the days that I take them myself, I tend to focus better on my work and feel better about doing it. That's a win-win for me. So grab your favorite podcast, hey, this one will do, and build your daily walks into your daily routine. Your body will thank you.